Namaskar. You are most welcome to the platform of the new Lyceum for English Literature. Dr. K Tiwari here. In the series of literary theory, today you are going to have a lecture on Jacques Derrida and Derrida's writings, his most popular concept, deconstruction. Today you will have in-depth analysis of these terms that you have just seen here on your screen. Alright, so let's start our today's presentation. This is your favorite platform, the new Lyceum for English Literature. You can join our YouTube channel through this link, and this is our Telegram channel. You could join it this is our WhatsApp channel, and this is the Telegram channel, and you can join it for further updates. Deconstruction and Jacques Derrida both are synonymous. Jacques Derrida was a French philosopher born in Algeria, had very tough childhood as he was a Jew and he was not allowed to study in his schools. But he came out from that scenario, he came out from that situation boldly and became one of the most significant, one of the most important, one of the most destructive philosophers of 20th century. Jacques Derrida, often associated with the movement in philosophy known as deconstruction. And he is one of the most elusive, controversial, and influential figures in Western intellectual history. His work has spanned philosophy, literature, law, political theory, and social theory. You cannot bind him under a single category. He is limitless and he is everywhere. He is in literature, he is in criticism, he is in philosophy, he is in politics, he is everywhere. So today we will discuss his philosophy, his deconstructionist theory. He was born in Algeria Algerian French philosopher and advocate for nuclear disarmament, protested against apartheid in South Africa and met with Palestinian intellectuals during a visit to Jerusalem. He was the founder of deconstruction, a way of criticizing not only both literary and philosophical texts but also political institutions. In fact, Derrida was basically obsessed with the functioning of language. Derrida's mode of writing is playful, elliptical, and sometimes obscure. However, the point is that the way he makes his argument is the argument itself, a degree of self-reflexivity that is not seen in contemporary writing. Derrida's root lies in the theory of Ferdinand de Saussure. His early work built upon the Saussurean notions of language and significations. As you know that Ferdinand de Saussure talked about sign, signifier, and signified. Ferdinand de Saussure talked about difference, meaning comes through difference. Derrida started his critical views on the basis of structural theory, but he took them to radical extremes. Derrida argued that if the relation between signifier and signified is arbitrary, as was told by Ferdinand de Saussure, and all language is relational, then the process of reading is a movement from one signifier to another signifier. As soon as we say cat, cat is cat because it is not mat, cat is cat because it is not sat, cat is cat because it is not anything else. Sign, signifier and signified, and according to Jacques Derrida, meaning is arbitrary. Meaning of cat does not come from the word cat, but meaning of cat comes from convention, and convention and language is relational. And then Derrida says, if language is relational and the relation between signifier and signified is arbitrary, then the process of reading is a movement from one signifier to another signifier, and in this way we can never reach to the meaning, we can never arrive to the meaning. Every signifier refers to another signifier. Every signifier refers to another words, another signifiers in an endless postponement, and that endless postponement is known as difference. We never arrive, we only travel along the path of meaning making, but there is no final meaning. There is no final meaning, there is no conclusion. We only defer the meaning, we only keep on traveling, right? We never arrive, we only travel along the path of meaning making. And in order to explain the word cat, we use further terms like animal, organism, whiskers, tail, more signifiers along the chain of signification, and hence there is no final meaning. There is no final meaning. This is one of the basic principles of deconstructionist theory according to Derrida. We never reach to the meaning, but we only travel, and our travel continues till we reach aporia. Aporia means deadlock, meaning lies nowhere, but finally from one signifier to another, from another signifier to another, we keep on traveling and there is deadlock. We can never arrive to the meaning. This is the basic principle of, one of the basic principles of deconstruction. There is no final signified, because even that signified will consist of more signifiers, more words. Every signifier is made of an absence. Every signifier is made of an absence. Cat is cat because it is not mat. Cat is cat because it is not sat. Right? Cat is cat because it is different from other animals. It means we reach to the meaning of cat, not because cat is here, but because through a series of long absence. And the reader says that meaning comes not through the presence of the word, through the presence of the signifier, but meaning comes through the series of absence. Every signifier is a series of difference from other signifiers. All of those are the absences that constitute this one. Cat is produced because fat, hat, mat, bat are absent, but these absences are crucial because without them we would not know what the cat is. This means the meaning of cat is the result of absences. The meaning of the cat is the result of absences rather than the presence of difference. Meaning, ironically, depends as much as on the absence of other words as on the presence of the word cat. Right? Means the sole part, the core of the meaning is in absence. Right? Without absence, we can never know the presence. Presence is dependent on the absence. So, you have read 3 points here. There is no final meaning, unfinal meaning, then their meaning comes through absences, right? There are many absences to prove one presence, and then meaning travels, that is difference. These are the basic points of deconstruction. All right. You have already read Rolla Barthes. Rolla Barthes' concept of language, and Rolla Barthes also said that you can never arrive to the meaning. You can never arrive to the meaning if there is the presence of the author. So he talked about the death of the author, he talked about birth of the reader, and he talked about the endless play in language and literary texts. The endless play means you can travel and you keep on traveling. Endless play. There is the unreliability of any meaning. Barthes and Rolla Barthes and Derrida both agree that meaning is unreliable as it totally depends on absence rather than presence. The text is open for discussion, that is, in the words of Rolla Barthes, writerly text. Anybody can write the text. Writerly text, language itself is unstable. The instability of language and the unfinalizability of any meaning are text. You can never reach to the meaning. You can only travel, right? You can only travel. You can never reach that unfinalizability, and the relationship between words, meanings and texts are intrinsic to the meaning rather than the words themselves. Right? So these are the points where Rolla Barthes and Derrida agrees. Rolla Barthes and Derrida agrees deconstructive criticism would build on these themes of unfinalizability, difference, relationality to show how a text can subvert its own stated philosophical or literary assumptions because it refers to and is open to a different reading. Right? It is open to another text rather than reinforce its argument, might subvert it. As you remember that Rolla Barthes had said that a text is made of several tissues and there is nothing original, right? There is no writer in fact, but there is a copyist. He copies, right? He copies from the previous text, and previous texts are also not original. So there is no meaning at all, that is unfinalizability of any meaning or text. If you sum up, Derrida's chief contribution has to show how language is fundamentally slippery, based on self-contradictory, unfinalizable conditions of difference and difference. Now you have two difference. Difference and difference, and Derrida makes one word out of the two, and that is difference. Right, that is difference. According to Derrida, all writing is this difference. All writing is this difference, and a study of this difference, is what Derrida famously termed grammatology. Grammatology is the name of the book. Of Grammatology was the book written by Derrida in French, and it was translated by JACQUES Spivak. What is grammatology? Grammatology is the study of difference, and difference meaning comes through difference. Cat is cat because it is not mat, because it is not hat, because it is not dog, right? And hence you can only differ, right? Difference means postponement. Postponement, you can travel and you travel, and you never reach. That is difference and difference, and the study of this difference and this difference is called grammatology. Alright, Derrida's arguments have focused on the need to pay closer attention to the way in which meanings are produced temporarily rather than with any finality through contradictions and ambivalence, and have consistently rebelled against any authoritative or authoritarian meaning in the same way as had Barthes done. Barthes had said that the death of the author, there is no authority of the meaning, and so is the case with Derrida. Derrida also says that there is no authority, right? There is no authority, there is no fixed meaning, there is no single meaning. Language itself is unreliable, a text is always open, right? Language is unstable, and in this way there is no final meaning. Every text is unfinal, right? Unfinalizability of meaning are text, and the relationship between words, meanings and text, they are intrinsic to meaning rather than the words themselves. And finally Derrida says that you can never arrive, you can travel, keep on traveling. So according to Derrida, a text is a journey. A text is an endless journey, and there is no destination at all. This is called deconstruction. What does deconstruction do? What does deconstruction do? Then Derrida says deconstruction breaks down the texts. Deconstruction defeats their stated text defeat their stated aims and purpose. In fact, texts have no purpose, texts have no aim, and texts rely on false or unsustainable oppositions, right? Unsustainable oppositions. There is nothing reliable, and a text make use of figurative language even when trying to be empirical. Texts reverse their own arguments. Texts depend on other texts. Texts depend on other signs, and texts conceal arguments that are the very opposite of what they ostensibly show. Means text is nothing. Text is nothing. It has no aim, it has no purpose, it has no reliability, it has no meaning, it has no relations. Then what is text? what is the text, and in fact the text defeat its stated aims and purpose in the view of deconstructionist theory. If structuralism was interested in how meaning is produced and text work, deconstruction is interested in the contradictions that resist meaning, in how texts do not work but deconstruct themselves. How texts do not work but deconstruct themselves. Deconstruction is thus interested in how texts break down, how texts defeat their stated aims, how texts rely on false or unsustainable oppositions, how texts make use of figurative, literary or metaphorical language even when trying to be empirical, how texts reverse their own arguments, how texts depend on the other texts, and how texts conceal arguments that are the very opposite of what they ostensibly show. And I have taken this slide from Pramod K. Nair's book, Contemporary Literary and Cultural Theory, from Structuralism to Eco-Criticism. Alright, now these are the writings through which Derrida talks about his theory of deconstruction: writing and difference, voice and phenomenon, and of grammatology. In all three, Derrida uses the word deconstruction. Now, here you have a few key terms regarding the theory, regarding the development of linguistics theory, and especially deconstruction. What is formalism? Formalism is a critical approach that focuses on the form of a text instead of its content and its relationship to the outside text. Form is more important than content. What is structuralism? Structuralism believes in the structural and linguistic aspects of the text rather than what it represented. Then binary oppositions. One of the key points of deconstruction and structuralism, binary oppositions are two concepts that are set as opposites to each other. For example, day and night, man and woman, nature and culture, speech and writing, light and dark, black and white, and later this binary opposition was used in post-colonial theories, in race theories, black and white. And then there is a hierarchy. This concept was also used by post-colonial critics. Hierarchy is a system in which things or people are organized into different levels based on their status or importance. And then structural linguistics, a branch of linguistics that treats language as a system of interconnected units. Semiotics, as you know that Roland Barthes was a semiotics. Semiotics is the study of how meaning is generated during the process of communication through signifier and signified. What is a sign? A sign is the basic unit of communication that refers to anything. It could be word, it could be image, it could be a symbol that carries a meaning. A signifier is a verbal or graphic symbol or code that represents an idea or an object, for example a word or an image. Unsignified is the concept the signifier tries to represent. Sign, signifier and signified. Sign is the basic unit of communication that refers to anything, word, image or symbol. A signifier is a verbal or graphic symbol or code that represents an idea or an object, and signified is the main concept that you want to convey. And then the key terms of deconstruction theory. These are very important for you and I will elaborate each in detail. Phonocentrism. Phonocentrism is the idea that speech or sound is superior to the written word, privileging of speech over writing. Phone means sound and center means center. Sound is in the center means speech is in the center. Speech in the center means here a binary opposition, speech and writing. And according to Derrida, the Western philosophers gave more prominence to speech and they subordinated writing, that is binary opposition. Alright, speech is privileged because it is seen as more authentic. Speech is seen as more authentic. How? Because the speaker is present in front of us, seen more authentic. Speaker is seen in front of us, so speech is thought to be more authentic. Speech is privileged, right? Since it happens only with the speaking person. Alright, writing is always treated as subordinate form. It is treated as artificial because the writer is not present. It is treated as artificial, and writing is suggests death, right? That is the death of the author. So writing suggests death, loss and unreliability. Loss and unreliability. Writing is unreliable, writing suggests death, writing suggests lost, writing suggests artificial because writer is not present before us. Speech is more important, speech is privileged because writer is present before us. Writing is treated as artificial and as suggesting death, loss and unreliability, since writing can exist independent of after the life of the writer. Thus, speech is taken to mean presence. Speak is taken to mean presence and writing is taken to mean absence. Writing is taken to mean absence, speech is taken to mean presence, and presence is always privileged, presence is always important in comparison to absence. Alright, writing is therefore about absences and thus less privileged in the binary opposition of speech and writing, and this is called phonocentrism. This is called phonocentrism. Derrida termed this privileging of speech over writing. Privileging of speech over writing, speech is more important than writing. Derrida termed this phonocentrism. Alright, speech is privileged. Why? Because it has an essence. Right? Speech is privileged because it seems to have an essence, and the essence is speaker. And listeners assume the speaker embodies the truth. Listeners assume that the speaker embodies the truth of what is being said because the speaker is present. In fact, Derrida proposes notion of truth are dependent upon this idea of a center, right? Notion of truth are dependent upon this idea of center, and that this idea of center on the idea of essence, on the idea of core. This is called logocentrism. Logos means words, which means word or reason, refers to the inclination in Western thought to privilege the word over what it stands for. Logos means word. Word is in the center, not the meaning. Derrida uses this term to describe the assumption or a quest for a core and essence, truth and center, and this logocentrism is called metaphysics of presence. Metaphysics of presence. Words are present, speaker is present, right? Speaker is present. This is what he terms logocentrism or the metaphysics of presence, where the core or the presence is seen as being truth. Derrida sees the entire canon of Western philosophy as rooted in the metaphysics of presence. Entire canon of Western philosophy is rooted in the metaphysics of presence, means speaker is everything. Speaker is everything, and speaker is generally compared to God because God embodies truth, and Western philosophers think that speaker is more important, speech is more important, and writing is less important. It means speaker is equivalent to God. God functions as a sort of core truth. God functions as a sort of core truth, and that is called transcendental signified. Logos or the final meaning is believed to vest in God, a signified that explains and culminates the very purpose of signification. And this is where all truth originates. This is where all truths originate. Derridian deconstruction's first move is therefore to reject this emphasis on center. Phonocentrism, logocentrism, and transcendental signified, these are the traditional opinion, and Derrida rejects all the three. Derrida rejects all the three. Derridian deconstruction, so first move is to reject, is to discard this emphasis on centers, origins and essences. And then Derrida coined a very special term, phalgocentrism. New word created by Derrida to describe the tendency to privilege masculinity in the understanding of society and meaning, and this phalgocentrism was later practiced by post-modern feminists, right? Phalgocentrism, right? Masculinity is preferable to femininity, right? Metaphysics of presence, phonocentrism, logocentrism, all these concepts were rejected by Derridian deconstruction theory, right? Nothing is in center, nothing is in center, and deconstruction rejects any center, right? Deconstruction rejects any boundary, deconstruction rejects any essence, deconstruction rejects any meaning, deconstruction rejects everything, right? It rejects phonocentrism, privileging of speech over writing. It rejects logocentrism, that is another way of privileging speech over writing, privileging word over what it stands, privileging words over what it stands for, signifier and signified. And then Western philosophers believed that God is essential, the truth lies in God, that God was transcendental signified, and Derrida rejected that transcendental signified once again. Alright, phonocentrism uses to describe the privileging of speech over writing, a privileging based on the assumption that speech implies a speaking presence, it is more authentic. Logocentrism is the term Derrida uses to describe the assumption and quest for a core, an essence, truth and cento. Logos are the final meaning is believed to vest in God, whom Derrida terms a transcendental signified, a signified that explains and culminates the very process of significations. Transcendental signified is none other than God, and Derrida rejects the presence of God in deciding the meaning. Alright, Derrida proposed that absence is the always present condition of inevitable death. The sign is iterable, repeatable in the absence not only of the writer speaker but also in the absence of the listener reader. Alright, then what is writing? Now I come to a few other words that were basically popularized by Derrida: difference, arc writing, aporia, metaphysics of presence and supplement. You have understood the basic meaning of difference as it is made of two words, difference and difference, right? And difference is a portmanteau, and this difference and difference means grammatology. All right, and according to Derrida, the supplement is difference. The supplement is difference. Derrida proposes that science cannot ever refer to the things themselves, or as there is no connection between the things and the words used to describe the thing. Cat is not cat, and cat doesn't have any relationship with the word cat. Therefore, signs are incomplete and require something else to complete its sense. And supplement is this necessary completion. Supplement is signifier that is extra. Supplement is something extra, and this extra is the meaning. Signifier is incomplete. Signifier cannot bring you to the signified, and thus we need something else, and that something else is signified. Derrida argues that signifier is also what completes. It is extra and therefore unnecessary, but also necessary for completion. It is both necessity and excess. It can substitute or supplant. The signifier is needed because it tells us that there is presence that is not here now. In other words, a sign is indicative of an absent presence because it shows something that is not here but makes us alert to the fact that something is not here. This makes the sign invaluable because it alerts us to signification itself. What is arc writing? Arc writing is the position that was before writing. That was before writing is arc writing. Derrida's more generalized notion of writing, arc writing, refers to the way in which the written is possible only on account of originary deferral of meaning that ensures that meaning can never be definitively present. Arc writing is a concept introduced by Jacques Derrida which refers to an abstract kind of writing that precedes both speech and writing. Now, speech is privileged to writing, and arc writing was something that was before the speech and before the actual writing. Alright, and Derridian term for this is archi-écriture, because he wrote in French. Derrida's formulation of écriture emerged from his criticism of the most significant binaries of speech and writing, and Derrida discussed these binaries in his essay Signature, Event, Context. Signature, Event, Context. This is an essay by Derrida, and in that essay he discussed the binaries of speech and writing in 1972 in an attempt to reorient the established hierarchy of speech over writing, what he called logocentrism. Derrida conceptualized écriture as any system that is characterized by difference and absence. Right? Archi-écriture is a related term that Derrida coined to refer to writing as an ultimate principle than as a derivative of logos. Thus, speech can be seen as a form of writing. Right? For Derrida, there is no difference between speech and writing. Speech can be seen as a form of writing, writing on the airwaves, writing on the memory of the listener or on the recording device. There is no fundamental dominance at work in écriture. Alright, and finally you have the term aporia. Aporia means deadlock. Aporia means deadlock, and in the terminology of deconstruction, aporia is a final impasse. What is aporia? Aporia is a final impasse. Final impasse, or you could say paradox, the site at which the text most obviously undermines its own rhetorical structure, dismantles or deconstructs itself. Right? It is a final impasse or paradox the site at which the text most obviously undermines its own rhetorical structure, dismantles or deconstructs itself. Right? That is aporia. Final impasse, final deadlock. Right? Greek root है word का aporia and it literally means without passage. All right. Supplement, and I have already told you about the metaphysics of presence, difference, arc writing, aporia, metaphysics of presence, and supplement. Supplement means both replacement and displacement. Replacement and addition. That which at once supplements and supplants. It can mean the adding of something to something that is already complete in itself, or it can mean the adding of something to complete something. Alright, so these are the terms that you have to remember, you have to keep in mind for your examinations. Now there is an essay, there is no outside text. There is no outside text. What is text? According to Rolla Barthes, there are two types of texts, readerly texts and writerly texts, and Rolla Barthes preferred the writerly texts. And Rolla Barthes said that there is no work in fact, but there is text only. From work to text, how can a work become a text? And Jacques Derrida says that there is no outside texts. Text requires a clearer explication in Derrida. For Derrida, text is not restricted by a book's margins or bindings. This is not text. Right? This is not text, this is work. A text cannot be restricted by its margins, by its pages, by its cover. It is something else. Text always spills. Right? It has no boundary. It spills. A text overruns, spills its borders, and the end of the book is not the end of the writing. In fact, sometimes writing starts after the end of the book, and every text carries traces of other texts. That Rolla Barthes said that tissues of other cells, that is text and that is intertextuality, to recall Julia Kristeva's theory or to recall Mikhail Bakhtin's theory, heteroglossia. And every text is therefore a network of other texts from which it differs. Though there is nothing original, but a text is different from other texts. How it is different? Because every text is a network of other texts. Every text is made up of other texts, and this text is different from other texts. That is the theory of text. The world, according to Derrida, is constructed through language, and language takes on a textualized form based on difference, and multiplicity. World, right? The world constructed through and in language takes on a textualized form based on difference, and multiplicity. This country is different from this country, right? This one is different from this one is different from this one is different from this one, and this one is different from this one. Everything is different from everything. That is differential of meaning, right? There is differential of countries, right? Because country itself is made of language, right? Our language is the most unreliable thing. There is no reality outside the game of language as difference and open. All right, language is inherently unstable. Language is inherently stable. So how can a text can be made? This is the quotation from the essay. There is no text. There is no outside text, in fact. All those boundaries that form the running border of what used to be called a text, of what we once thought this world would identify, the supposed end and beginning of a work, the unity of a corpus, the title, the margins, the signatures, the referential realm outside the frame, and so forth. What has happened is a sort of overrun that spoils all these boundaries and divisions and forces us to extend the accredited concept, the dominant notion of a text that is no longer a finished corpus of writing, some content enclosed in a book or its margins, but a differential network, a fabric of traces referring endlessly to something other than itself or to other differential traces. Since we cannot come to a definite meaning about reality or identity, all we have as reality is a system of shifting signifiers, difference and openness, full of ambiguity, absences, traces and other texts. This notion of reality being located within writing, within text, leads Derrida to declare there is no outside text. Derrida is proposing that everything takes on a textualized form of difference, but also the texts are politicized, right? And then Derrida says that text is not quite an extension of a familiar concept, but a displacement or reinscription of it. All those boundaries that form the running border of what used to be called a text, of what we once thought this world would identify the supposed end and beginning of our work, the unity of a corpus, the title, the margins, signatures, referential realms outside the frame and so forth. What has happened is a sort of overrun that spoils all these boundaries and divisions and forces us to extend the accredited concept, the dominant notion of a text that is no longer a finished corpus of writing, some content enclosed in a book or its margins, but a differential network, a fabric of traces referring endlessly to something other than itself, to other differential traces. There is no outside text signifies that one never accedes to a text without some relation to its contextual opening, that a context is not made up only of what is so trivially called a text, that is, the words of a book or the more or less biodegradable paper document in a library. If one does not understand this initial transformation of the concepts of texts and context, one understands nothing about nothing of deconstruction. Right? So this was the total opinion of Jacques Derrida and Jacques Derrida's theory of deconstruction. I hope you would have enjoyed all the lecture in toto, and if you have understood the lecture, if you have understood the concept of deconstruction as was propagated by Derrida, then your comments are most welcome. You can like the video, you can share the video, and if you do not like, if you don't understand, then you could dislike the video. Platform is public, it's open for you. Right? What is the essence of deconstruction? What have we understood through the concept of deconstruction of Jacques Derrida? Here I have summarized them in 4 parts. Number 1, the key argument in deconstruction is that meaning is unreliable, as the language that communicates meaning is itself unreliable. Point number 1. Meaning is unreliable, language is unreliable, and meaning is unreliable, language that communicates meaning is at itself unreliable. Number 2, it is impossible to determine fixed underlying meaning in a text, as meaning keeps on traveling from one signifier to another signifier. Number 3, all texts are open to multiple interpretations. There is no singular meaning, there is no singular interpretation, there is no author, there is no authority. The text is open to all. And number 4, central to the theory of deconstruction is Derrida's idea of difference and his criticism of binary oppositions. So this was all about deconstruction and Jacques Derrida. And from France, Jacques Derrida's theory shifted to America, right? In the campus of Yale University, and those who practiced deconstruction in America, they were called Yale critics or American deconstructionists. And American deconstructionists were Harold Bloom, Paul DeMann, Jeffrey Hartman, and J. Hillis Miller. Paul DeMann, J. Hillis Miller, Harold Bloom, and Jeffrey Hartman. Right? These were the American deconstructionists. Alright, and I hope this lecture is enough for your understanding of deconstructionist theory, and this lecture is enough for your examination. Right? Please do like, share, and give your comments. Now you have 2 more terms regarding Derrida, that's why I have mentioned it here. First one is the incorruptibles. The incorruptibles. You would have heard the word might be for the first time. The word incorruptibles were coined by a feminist and her name was Hélène Cixous. She was a French feminist, Hélène Cixous, right? And she termed a few philosophers of her time as the incorruptibles. Derrida became famous at the end of the 1960s with the publication of his 3 books in 1967. At the same time, other great books appear. Michel Foucault's Les Mots et les Choses. In English, it was translated as The Order of Things, right? And in 1966, Deleuze's Difference and Repetition in 1968. And it is hard to deny that the philosophy publications of this epoch indicate that we have before us a kind of philosophical movement, a movement perhaps comparable to the movement of German idealism at the beginning of 19th century. And Hélène Cixous calls this generation of French philosophers the incorruptibles, right? This generation means the generation of 1960s. The generation of 1960s when French were on their peak. Not only these 3 but several books appeared in that decade, right? In that decade, several books appeared by the French writers, by the French feminists and French philosophers. All right. The last interview Derrida gave to Le Monde on August 19, 2004, he provided an interpretation of the incorruptibles. By means of metonymy, I call this approach an intransigent, even incorruptible ethos of writing and thinking without concession even to philosophy and not to letting public opinion, the media or the phantasm of an intimidating readership frighten or force us into simplifying or repressing. Hence the strict test for refinement, paradox and aporia. You have to just remember the names. The incorruptibles, the phrase was coined by Hélène Cixous. Hélène Cixous called the French philosophers of 1960s, right? French philosophers who were very much popular in 1960s, they were called incorruptibles by Hélène Cixous. All right. And from Hélène Cixous, the feminist move, right? Feminist move. Feminism adopted deconstruction to dismantle the cultural assumptions surrounding gender. Feminist writers used it to challenge the dominance and presumed superiority of the masculine. The binary position man-woman is now commonly referred to as the gender binary and has been challenged by scholars of gender studies. Feminist literary criticism often uses the deconstructionist approach to analyze literary text, and I will discuss the feminist move of deconstruction in my lecture on feminism. I hope you would have enjoyed the entire lecture of today. That's all for today, and I'll meet you in the next section, next lecture on literary theory. By then, keep on enjoying, keep on traveling. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much for watching the entire video, for watching the entire lecture. Thank you. All the best.